Hello, friends. Today we are going to read another story about Curious George. The title is Curious George and the Animals. Here's George. What kind of an animal is George? Yes, he's a monkey. What is George doing? He's feeding an alligator. Where is George? Well, I see some bars. And I see that George is here and the alligator is here. Where might you go to visit animals where you can see them and maybe even feed them, but you can't touch them? A zoo. Yes, Curious George is at the zoo. And it's a special zoo. It's a zoo where you can feed animals. Not all zoos let you feed the animals. We're going to read this story 3 times. First, I will read the story, and I want you to listen to it. Next, I will read the story, then you read the story. I do, you do. I read, you read. Last, you will read the story, then I will read the story. Ready? Here we go. Curious George and the Animals. George can feed giraffes. George. Giraffes. 1 giraffe, 2 giraffes. He can feed an elephant. Elephant. Peanuts. He can feed kangaroos. Kangaroos. 1, 2. He can feed an alligator. Alligator. He can feed a bird. Bird. Bench. Uh-oh, George is falling off a bench as a bird dives past him to grab peanuts. That bird must really want those peanuts. All right, friends, let's go back to the very beginning. I will read the book, then you read the book. I do, you do. Curious George and the Animals. Now you. Curious George and the Animals. George can feed giraffes. He can feed an elephant. He can feed kangaroos. He can feed an alligator. He can feed a bird. Good job. Now, last, if you would like a challenge, come with me. This time, you will read the story first, then I will read the story. Curious George and the Animals. Your turn. Curious George and the Animals. George can feed giraffes. He can feed an elephant. He can feed kangaroos. He can feed an alligator. He can feed a bird. Let's talk about the story a little bit, friends. In this book, Curious George feeds animals at the zoo. Which animal does he feed first? Which does he feed next? Which does he feed last? Let's think. Which animal does George feed first? Let's look. Giraffes. George feeds the giraffes first. Which animals does George feed next? That means which animals come after the giraffes? Well, next come the elephants, the kangaroos, and the alligator. Which animal does George feed last? Now think, which is the animal that goes to take George's peanuts? That's the animal George feeds last. George feeds the bird last. First, George feeds the giraffes. Next, George feeds the elephant, the kangaroos, and the alligator. Last, George feeds the bird. Curious George and the Animals.